All right, so hey everyone, welcome back to a Spark and Ninja podcast. David here, and I have got I would call him a special guest, but he's not really because I've been speaking about him for years and years. Never really had him on anything, so it's time that we kind of listen from the guru, so to speak, and actually let him kind of probably just try to wind me up at the other end of this microphone. So who are you?
I'm your dad, you get.
So what do I call you? Do I call you dad? Do I call you pop? I mean, everyone, this is Phil Watts, by the way.
What you want to call me.
But this is Phil Watts. But you'll find him on some social media. He's not very active, but he knows.
Too old.
He's got some time. He might get a bit more active at the moment. But okay, so Pop.
Yes, mate.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Right, okay, so how I got in the electrical game. My father, your grandfather, was an electrician. I got thrown out of school at 15. I was told I couldn't be educated. Told that I was a waste of time and I had no future. And I got kicked out of school when I was 15. So I actually started working on building sites. I was actually underage at the time because you had to be 16, and I started working on a site at 15. And obviously I went to work with my dad and started as an electrician's mate at the age of 15. In those days, you did everything you were told. You were sort of like you went out to go to the shops and get the guys their lunch, move all their tools around for them, tidy up after them, and I didn't touch a tool for about 3 months. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to touch anything at all for about 3 months. And my first job was clipping of cables. So I was trusted to clip some cables. And I always remember that my father told me to go up in the loft, and I was told to clip the cables around the loft every 9 inches. Yeah, without fail, every 9 inches. And I got up in the loft and very shortly got rather bored with measuring it. And I used the handle of the hammer. I thought that's about 9 inches. And I started using the handle of the hammer to space my clips out. And so I got round this loft and clipped most of the cables round. And then my father popped his head up through the hatch and said, right, it's lunchtime. And I started coming out of the loft. He said, hang on, what's the distance of those clips? I said, well, about 9 inches. He said, I didn't say about 9 inches. I said, 9 inches. He said, that's more like 11. Measure it. And it was exactly 11 inches. And he said, well, what did you use to measure that with? I said, the handle of the hammer. I said, he said, right, okay. He said, so I started coming down that lift. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to lunch. You just said it's lunchtime. Not for you, he says. You've got to re-clip all that in your own time. Yeah. And that's how I learned. So my dad was a good electrician, quality-wise, good quality stuff. He cared a lot about the job, cared a lot about quality, how it looked, and doing the job correctly. He wasn't the most sort of academic. He wasn't a brilliant mathematician, but he was a good tradesman, a good craftsman.
He was a craftsman. That's a key word. Yeah. I always think of him when I think of a craftsman. Yeah.
So that's how I started, and then I put myself through evening classes at Bracknell Wokingham College, and put myself through classes there 2 nights a week. Initially, did my 236. Went on from there. I did my 2391. Back in the old days when the 2391 was the 2391. And the 16th edition was my first wiring regs. We started off at the 15th edition, but I never actually sat the course then. I did the 16th edition. And then gradually learnt more and more and more. And electrical trade is a brilliant trade to get into. I loved it. And it's got so many different aspects to it. My father always tried to deter me from going into the electrical trade.
Really?
And he did, yeah. He said, the last thing you want to do is be an electrician. And I'd look at it completely the other way around, because I would recommend it to anybody. It's a brilliant trade. We've got some really good people working in the trade. We've got some really good people working around the trade. Got some not so good as well, but get that everywhere. But so when you came to leaving school, and that's why I recommended it to you. Mm-hmm. And then when you decided you'd like to do it, that's when you came to work with me, and I put you through an apprenticeship. So
I I remember one of the key things was you telling me that, you may not want to do this for the rest of your life, but you don't know what else there is to do. And you basically said, if you do this, at least you'll have that skill.
You've always got it to fall back on.
Yeah, you'll always have that to fall back on. And I think that was pretty much the thing that sealed it for me.
I always say, because I've worked in FE colleges with apprentices, I've worked with young people, and how anybody knows at the age of 16 what they want to do for the rest of their life, it's nonsense. You don't know what you want to do. I've changed careers within the electrical trade. I've changed careers several times. I had 18 years as a fireman, retained. I ran a fire station for 9 years. But I did that alongside the electrical work. But within the electrical arena, I've worked on domestic, I've worked on commercial, I've worked on industrial, I've done maintenance, I've done inspection and testing. I've got into temporary electrical installations, doing events, sports events, music events, all sorts of things. Got into design, got into estimating, and then I got into teaching. And I've had now.
And the funny thing is, you still know that there's more you could go into. There's still more that you could do. It really is quite a great trade for that.
It's a brilliant trade because you never stop learning. Every day's a school day. It's a brilliant trade, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. And yeah, for younger people, yes, if you might decide. I had one apprentice that I taught many years ago. And he's now an airline pilot.
Oh, really?
He was a brilliant electrician, lovely lad, really, really good guy. I knew his dad because his dad came and did courses with me as well. His dad still works as an electrician, but he went off. He went to Australia for a while, worked as an electrician out there. So electrical trade took him out to Australia, enabled him to travel. He came back. He decided to train as an airline pilot, and that's what he's doing now. And good luck to him. He's done his time as an electrician. He's gone on to something else. Who knows? Maybe in 10, 15 years' time, he might come back to the electrical trade. But for young people, I would always recommend it. But I would always say to them, you're 16, 17, 18, whatever it is now, you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. But it's a great trade to get into. And it will give you that to put in your back pocket. You can use it any time.
What's your opinion on apprentices or apprenticeships at the moment? Because I was lucky in that you basically offered me an apprenticeship. You offered me an opportunity. But there are so many people. I mean, we visit colleges, and Paul and Dan from the E5 group visited a college not long ago, and there was about 70 to 80 apprentices there doing apprenticeships, but they had no jobs. So what's it's like, what's your opinion on apprentices, or how apprentices are introduced to the industry at the moment?
The old sort of way of doing apprenticeships was you obviously get a position with a company, and then the company would get you an apprenticeship or give you an apprenticeship, and then you'd sort of set up with the college. So you go to college 1 day a week, and you do that for 3 years. Then you do your 4 3 years in MVQ, and then sort of do your AM2 at the end of it. That's gone rather awry in some cases, because I remember 2 of the colleges that I worked at where guys would actually come in initially as an apprentice, and then they might lose their job within 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then the college would keep them on, and then try desperately to find another employer for them. Sometimes they were successful, and sometimes they weren't so successful. And some of the colleges do a really good job in sort of getting onto local employers and recommending guys for jobs. We did it. One of the colleges I worked at, they were very, very active in that, and we got some really good young lads who were really, really worthwhile, really engaged, really keen on the job, and we ended up placing them with companies, and it was great when you sort of meet them sort of 5, 6, 7 years later. How you getting on? And they either worked their way up through the company, and they're now one of the senior sort of guys. They're going out doing the inspection and testing, or in some cases they might have gone off and started for themselves. But it's great when you see the success stories within the industry, and you think, oh gosh, perhaps we had a little tiny part in that, and that's what makes the job so good. There are other aspects of the apprenticeship which aren't so good. It doesn't always work. One of the big issues with some of the colleges that I worked with was the fact that the apprentices were worth somewhere in the region of about £13,000-14,000 to the college, but only if they achieved. And this then puts pressure on the college to get them through whatever, hell or high water, no matter whether they're good, bad, indifferent. The college is trying desperately to get them through. And in some cases, this led to things not being as tight as they should be, shall we say? And that's one of the reasons.
You mean the quality assurance may have been a little bit?
Quality assurance was almost non-existent, and certain mechanisms within the college were basically ensuring that they achieved, whether or not they. Yeah. They'd actually learned, whether they actually knew the job. And in some cases, I know on at least one occasion where pretty much an exam was done for the guys. And that was a time when I just said, look, I've had enough of this. I can't condone this. And I left that particular college, which is great because, I went off and started up on my own and I've never looked back. So, but that was an issue. And it was, there were a number of guys working at the college who were all saying this isn't right, this shouldn't be done this way. But eventually it did get sorted. I know that because I knew somebody who carried on working there for a number of years, and eventually it did get sorted. But
I had communications with a college I worked at. I had communications from a guy on LinkedIn who is now in charge. And he's tried to assure me that a lot of practices that were there have now improved. But it's one of the reasons that I've got my eyes on training and FE, in particular awarding bodies, which we're going to have to cover in other podcasts about the quality of training through the whole line. But you start a level 2 or level 3 calendar year, and you'd have something like 25 to 30 guys. The college has crammed them in. So when you come to practical, it's quite dangerous sometimes to have that many people as one assessor doing the isolation procedure, and they're all queuing up. This is quite dangerous because the thing is, the colleges know that after a couple of weeks or halfway through, a lot of those guys are going to drop out or lose jobs, and they're going to, as you say, try to keep them in jobs because the colleges need them to stay in jobs because that's how they get their end fund. By getting them through. I don't know, right? I mean, I've not been in FE for a couple of years, but if that model hasn't changed, it's just so corruptible with regards to quality.
If you think about that, if you turn that over to say an MOT business, you've got an MOT business, and if you turn around to that MOT business and said you're only going to get paid if you pass cars, we're not going to pay for this MOT unless you actually pass the car. You only get paid if the car passes. How would that affect the quality of the MOTs?
Yeah.
With the best will in the world, MOT centres would start thinking, well, hang on, I might let that go. Things that they might normally pick up, maybe the odd bulb here and there, or the odd windscreen washer to start with. But then you'd get some that would say, well, okay, fair enough, all right, it's got 4 wheels, we'll give it an MOT. And this is the problem with that sort of model. If you only pay on success or achievement, then it encourages bad practice.
I think that's the key thing. We have to be careful when we say success. Success in this case is the ability to complete and pass an assessment.
Yeah,
it doesn't. That doesn't in any way determine the actual journey to that point, and whether it was ethically done correctly or if it was driven to succeed.
Yeah. The quality of the actual learning sort of engagement and everything else is not sort of guaranteed by somebody getting a piece of paper at the end of it.
No, it's not. So you say you left and you started your own training company. This is Ascot College of Electrical Studies Limited. That's a unique name. Where's that name come from?
Because I lived in Ascot, and
You lived in Ascot?
yeah, and I was working in Ascot, so I was based in Ascot.
So you thought I'll do it from Ascot? Okay.
So shall I call it Ascot College, or shall I call it Timbuktu? I don't know. So Ascot College sort of won over the day. But most of our courses, or a lot of our courses, are held at a venue at Ascot Racecourse. So
it's actually, I was there a few weeks ago. It's a very nice, calm, good venue.
Yeah.
Nice and quiet.
A lot of the guys that come there like it because it's nice and calm. There's plenty of parking. It's easy to get to. But we also deliver around the country, so we're mobile, as you know, because you've come with me. We've done courses in Dubai. We do courses nationwide and further. But
and actually, just for completeness, if I do any work where I deliver City Guilds accredited training, it's quality assessed by yourself as a company. So any City Guilds training that I deliver is Ascot College. So it's got to be, it's got to have good quality. And we spent many a times actually meeting up just to actually do quality assurance meetings and things like that. And it's quality assurance is something, even this is where we're starting to get into private training. I've done work with many different private training companies, and quality assurance is a big problem in this industry for training.
It's so varied. That's the trouble. There are some really good companies out there. There's some really good trainers out there who do care. They do give a damn. They are working ethically. But equally, there's a number of people that are not. And this is the issue. And it's always the bad apples that spoil the rest of the barrel.
Yeah.
And this is the issue. It's the same with I think it's the same with every trade. I think it's the same with every sort of job you go into. You've got a lot of people out. You've got a lot of sparkies out there that do really good work, know what they're doing. They're really competent, really skilled. But you've also got a number of people that I wouldn't trust putting a plug top on, and they're practicing as electricians. And you think, well, we need somehow to glean these people out of the industry because they're taking the work away from the good guys, and that's one of the big issues.
So what do you see as the future of training?
I would love to see, living in a utopian world, if everybody had an ethical sort of approach to things, it would be great, because people would be looking at the quality of what's being delivered rather than whether or not they get 100% achievement. And I often say to people, I hear companies saying, we get 100% of our people through, everybody passes.
Ugh.
I think, well, if everybody passes, there's something wrong with your assessments. They're not tough enough, because not everybody can pass every assessment. I've had guys that worked for me many years ago when I ran an electrical contracting firm, who did level 2, got to level 2. There's one particular guy who was a great guy, but he would never go any further. He really struggled to get through level 2. And I talked to the local college, and I talked to him, and we had a big chat, a big meeting one morning, and discussed whether or not he wanted to go any further, and he didn't, because he said, I don't think I can manage it, and I didn't really want to put him in that position. And we looked around, and we actually found him a job working for a wholesaler, electrical wholesaler.
Oh, wow.
So he used the skills that he'd learnt with us in his wholesaling practice, and within 6 months he was the assistant manager, and within about 2 years he was the manager of the electrical wholesalers, and he's still there now. So he's made a very successful career using his electrical knowledge, which was based on the first 2 years of the apprenticeship, and he used that knowledge to be a very good electrical wholesaler, and this is the thing, is that it doesn't suit everybody, and we need to have perhaps stepping off points, maybe.
So do you think maybe the industry or the training has been moulded to try to suit everybody?
That's one size fits all, isn't it? And it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's the trouble. The industry is so widespread. We've got so many different facets to this industry that to have one apprenticeship to fit everything doesn't work.
Well, that's what we have right now, is we have these people who are probably like this gentleman who don't quite cut to meet to the level 3, so it's been molded to accommodate them. But those who could go beyond level 3, that we're all stuck in the same sphere. We're all just shoved in the same space, and we end up with operatives that have varying levels of competence. So we just see such a different scope of work now when we look at the.
Do you remember when you were delivering the 2365?
Yeah.
The module on motors.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through single-phase motors, three-phase motors, DC motors, AC motors, all the different types and everything else. And a lot of the guys said, what on earth are we doing?
What on earth is all this?
I'm never going to touch a motor in my life. Yeah. And this is one of the issues. Now, why couldn't we have had a module on neutron lighting or something like that? Or some other, these sort of smart lighting systems or some other module which would have been something far more useful to them,
Well, that's a very good argument.
Let's just keep banging these motors into them because it's part of the all right, for some people it would be. But there should be that sort of flexibility.
I guess this is a problem, though, is they try to shove everybody into the one classroom experience, and the training fundamentally then is there's not enough time to give them all the training that they need, so they keep giving them the same one thing. And I said this in the podcast I did with Electrum just recently. The training industry needs to be knocked down and rebuilt. Because you're right, manufacturers need to have much more influence in the industry from a training perspective, both in the workshop, in the college, but also in the technical training. Now we look at switch gear like Schneider's latest stuff. We look at switch types. I see domestic electricians on Instagram and they're putting up devices. I mean, your smart homes, so you have your Nest and your Ring doorbells and stuff, but there's other stuff and I'm just like, never seen that before.
Yeah.
And that stuff needs to start coming into colleges. The PowerPoints, the slides, the information, the material on motors and generators and squirrel cage and stuff, it's interesting, but a lot of people will disconnect from its purpose.
But I've got to say, when I first started teaching in FE college, I actually went to the FE college to sign up for a HNC. And
really?
That's what I went for. Went to sign on for an HNC, and
you came out with a contract.
I came out with a job instead. Yeah, no, I went to sign on for the HNC. Went through. They asked me a load of questions, why I wanted to do it, this, that, and the other, and then they turned around to me and said, "Well, actually, we're not running it." I said, "Well, thanks very much. Why are you wasting my time?" And they said, "Well, have you ever thought about teaching?" I said, "Well, yes, I have." Because by that time I'd had 9 years as a station commander at a fire station, so I was used to training.
And I think your time with the brigade was starting to finish, wasn't it? You were just there
was
stuff happening that you just
a lot of paperwork going in.
Yeah, you weren't on the pump as much.
Nonsense and I say nonsense. It wasn't nonsense, but it wasn't. The job was changing, and I was getting
to change.
Tired with it. But I'd had 9 years of being in charge of the station, so 9 years of training the guys up and sort of taking them through the ropes. So I was used to teaching and training people. So when I was asked whether or not I'd ever considered teaching, I was like, well, yeah, I have. Yeah. They said, well, would you like a job with us? So I said, well, okay. They said, well, would you like an interview? So they gave me the interview there and then.
Oh, did they?
This was on a Monday. And it was a 3-hour interview, and I had to give a little lecturette on making off MI cable.
So I had to do that. I had to do it in the workshop.
Yeah, down the workshop, make off an MI and talk through what I was doing and this, that, and the other. So I did that, and they asked me a few questions about teaching, and I just gave them answers I thought would be relevant to teaching. And they said, right, we'll give you we'll put your scores together, and we'll let you know, probably give you a call on Thursday and let you know how you've done.
Did you get out the car park?
So I got into the car. I went driving out the car park. As I'm driving out the car park, my phone went, so I stopped, answered the phone. They said, when can you start?
So was this because they just had no other trainers, or what was the...
Well, you see, I thought I was really, really, really good, or they were completely in the poo.
Yeah,
and
completely in the poo.
They were completely in the poo, yeah. They'd lost a couple of guys, and there was a guy off sick, and they were really struggling. So I said, well, I could come tomorrow, because at that time my father was still working with us. So when I went back to the office, I said, can you look after things tomorrow, because I've got a teaching thing, which he just said, yeah, fine, no problem. He didn't ask any questions. And I went in on the Tuesday, and first 20 minutes, nobody actually even talked to me. So I sat in the office, and I thought, well, this is silly. So I went and found one of the guys that I'd seen the day before, and I went and sat in his lesson till 10:30. And then after that, we had a cup of tea. And then at 11 o'clock, I was walking down the corridor, and he was coming the other way with a big pile of papers. He said, I'm glad you're here. He said, this is for you. You're teaching that lot in there. And that was my introduction to teaching. Yeah. So, I went and, hi, guys, I'm your new teacher. Yeah. And that was it.
That's insane.
And I spent my first lesson was, okay, guys, what are you doing? Why do you want to be an electrician? Because I was totally unprepared, and I just thought I'll get to know the guys and why they want to be an electrician, what they want to see from the job, where they want to go with the job, and that sort of stuff. And we hit it off straight away. And then I spent sort of lunchtime pouring through some stuff to do for the afternoon, winged it for the afternoon, and then, yeah. And then it was back into the office when I let them all go. What the hell am I doing?
What are you doing? But fundamentally, at least you kind of had that mindset to actually ask and engage with the guys. I think that's one of the things that shocked them when I first started, is that point of you trying to actually talk to them and communicate and ask them. I think that was missing with a lot of the others. All right. Well, we've just hit half an hour. So what we're going to probably do is we're going to tie this one up. But I think we're going to have to probably do a series with you, Pop, because I think we should do a podcast that's just about 7909.
Yep.
Because that's a very important area that I want to
discuss. Temporary stuff. Yep.
I want to do one on the fire. Obviously, because with the fire, I want to cover obviously your opinion on the regulations and how they've changed over time, and more also about your opinion on how the industry has approached that regulation. With it, is it the retrospectiveness of that, and with regards to premature collapsing, but also without going into it right now.
I don't like that word.
Yeah, premature collapse. But without going into it right now, I know you've got lots to talk about that, and I think I want a good discussion just on fire, premature collapse, cable clips, etc. So I want to talk about that one. We can cover more on the training. We can talk specifically about the inspection and testing training on one. And then we can also
inspection testing,
but there's also
the tests that we don't do that we should do.
The tests that we don't do, the form, the filling of the form. All the stuff we get up to when we meet up, and those wonderful conversations that makes everyone else in the room think, bloody, I'll leave them to it. And also your part in the Part P shenanigans,
the select
committee meetings and the stuff, and and basically your involvement with E5 as well. There's lots to talk about, and so we're going to do some more. Thanks for coming on, Pop, and we'll do another one very, very soon. All right.
Okay, mate.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Take care.